Welcome to Monday Morning Reaction presented by MetaQuest. I'm Mitch, here to discuss the teams that need a change, a coaching change. Teams that need to think about firing their coach right now, tomorrow, before it's too late. In this video, I will break down about 7 teams that I feel should go with the new coach, go with the new approach, change their culture. And when I'm discussing these teams and these coaches, I'm talking about where are they at fault? Is their culture out of whack in their locker room? Is their side of the football not living up to expectation? And is their overall team, their roster, their talent pool not living up to expectation? That is why a coach should be removed and replaced. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Let me know which coach you think should be gone, be replaced for the rest of 2024 and for next season. Let's begin with the breaking news, the obvious, which is the New Orleans Saints. They figured it out. I didn't even have to come on here and scream at them. No, I actually, thankfully, can just say the Saints will have a new coach next season because Dennis Allen has been removed as the head coach of the New Orleans Saints. I think this one was pretty obvious. I think most people watching the NFL this season, last season, even maybe the year before that, could have told you that Dennis Allen is not suited to be a head coach. Now, I want to say that I have always found Dennis Allen's defense to be pretty solid. But I think the biggest problem Dennis Allen has been this season, and the biggest problem he has had this season, is the fact that his defense, his calling card, is not living up to expectation. Dennis Allen, as a head coach, is 18-25 as the coach of the Saints. 26-53 overall, because previously he was the head coach at one time of the Raiders. And his records have gone from 7-10 to 9-8 last season, back down to 2-7. Now, he had some Derek Carr injury in there, but after losing to the Panthers, I think it made it obvious that the quarterback, no matter who it wasn't going to be great. But the defense, I think, is the biggest story, and people will overlook this. The defense in New Orleans, 9th in points against in 2022, 8th in points against in 2023. Right now, as we currently stand, after week number 9, the Saints rank 26th in points allowed, 28th in yards allowed. So Dennis Allen, his calling card, his defense, which was so good for so long in New Orleans, sucks this year. They can't stop the run. They couldn't stop Hubbard. They couldn't stop Sanders. They could barely stop Bryce Young through the air. They have had problem after problem getting after the quarterback in recent seasons. And the crazy thing to me is everyone is going to blame Dennis Allen for everything that's going on in New Orleans. But I think it's actually a holistic issue with the Saints. First of all, why is their general manager still there? Like, I think we also have to think about just a complete regime change in New Orleans. The amount of mind-numbing moves the Saints have made from the front office's perspective, absolutely wild. I don't know how many of these Dennis Allen actually had in mind or that he had influence over, but this just Saints organization and franchise needs a complete reshaping and reworking. Because the coach was bad. The quarterback in Derek Carr is not going to be there for much longer. And they gave him a ludicrous contract right when they signed him. And the general manager is making move after move that's putting this team in debt season after season after season. You look at their salary cap compared to the rest of the NFL, it's absolute. It's crazy. Like, no other team operates in this fashion. So, yeah, Dennis Allen, to me, never a great head coach, always been a solid defensive coordinator. I think he will find a role on a defense in 2025, maybe as a defensive coordinator. I know he's Sean Payton's boy. He's Sean Payton's guy. But losing to the Carolina Panthers, one of the worst teams I've ever seen, was the last straw. So Dennis Allen fired from the Saints. We'll see which direction they go. But in my opinion, this is more than just the coach. This needs to be an entire franchise reworking. Okay. Chase the Ace, sick name, by the way, says, hate to say it, but as a Dolphins fan, McDaniel and Greer got to pack it up. I thought about Mike McDaniel on this one. I'm not going to lie, but I just feel like Mike McDaniel is one of those coaches that if he were fired, he would instantly be rehired, probably as a head coach, but possibly also just an offensive coordinator because he's such a brilliant offensive mind. And I think after this past game against the Bills, he definitely had one of his better performances, especially offensively. Robert Saleh to the Saints, maybe for the short term. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think they'll just elevate somebody, maybe Kubiak, perhaps. I know that the Saints fans maybe like Kubiak a little bit more than Dennis Allen, so that would be the move that I think they would go with. Robert Saleh, I don't know what he's proven, what he's done to say that he should be a head coach in the NFL. Again, like we talked about him before he was fired, that he wasn't a great head coach with the Jets. Do we think that he was the reason the Jets are failing right now? Absolutely not. He was actually the best coach on that awful staff, but he was also responsible for putting that staff together. So yeah, Robert Saleh, I think probably will find his role somewhere as a defensive assistant or a defensive coordinator probably next season. He's already, I think, working with the Packers and Matt LaFleur. So for the short term, I think he's got a job, but we'll see in 2025 where he ends up landing. But yeah, Dennis Allen, man, good luck in the future. It was not going well with the Saints. And you have to wonder some of these hires, like what inspires some of these hires on the second go around? Like sometimes they work out, like Bill Belichick, for example. Some of them do not work out, okay? Some of them are awful, including what we saw with the Raiders and Josh McDaniels. My guy, Josh McDaniels, as a Patriots fan. But the guy that they've hired after Josh McDaniels is no better whatsoever. Like, not at all. He's maybe worse. A coach that needs to go is Antonio Pierce. Antonio Pierce, he's getting everyone else removed, everyone else fired. They're firing half the staff in Las Vegas. Somehow Antonio Pierce is still standing. I don't know what he does. If anyone wants to let me know what he does on the sidelines, he's taking his notes in his diary, his journal. I don't know what he's putting down there. That we can't stop anything. Our offense can't block. Our quarterback stinks. We need to put Desmond Ridder in the game to save us. You know you're bad. You know you need saving when Desmond Ridder is coming to your heroic rescue, guys. I mean, wow. Okay. So the Raiders, I think what has flown under the radar now, because it happened late last night, I believe, and Dennis Allen just got fired, is Luke Getsy was fired as the offensive coordinator of the Raiders. And Luke Getsy, I think, is kind of like the scapegoat. Like he was the scapegoat of the Bears last year, and he feels like the scapegoat here as well. Like he feels like the guy that you just point the finger at and like, yeah, we hired you because maybe that's the first guy we could get rid of. Like, bro, what are we talking about here? What Antonio Pierce this defense has regressed in Vegas this year. They were actually really solid last year. This year, they ranked 27th in points against and on offense, they're no better. They're 26th in points for. So it's not like they're any better. But actually, Luke Getsy's unit was actually a little bit better, if you were going to put it that way. On top of that, look at what do they do well? They're supposed to be the Raiders. Like this is one of the worst running teams we've seen in the last 20 years. Like they are that bad at running the football. That bad. Devontae Adams wanted to get traded 3 weeks into the season. And where did he get traded? Arguably a place that might be even worse. The New York Jets. Okay? Like, honestly, the Raiders look like a team against the Bengals that may not win another game. That might be like crazy to say, but they've lost 5 games in a row. And at no point did you feel like they were going to win any of those games. I still don't know how they beat the Ravens. Like, this is probably the most poorly coached football team. They have a linebacker coach as their head coach. Like, what did Antonio Pierce do other than say he's a Raiders fan and wear a fancy jacket? What did he do to become the coach of the Raiders, bro? Like, see, this is the Raiders. This is the Raiders. Okay? Like, he wasn't a great offensive play caller. He wasn't a great defensive mind. He had no accolades. He was just a hype man. And they thought he was the next Dan Campbell. Well, it just so happens he is not. All right. Gator says, why wait till the end of the season? Let AP walk now. Mark Davis is the problem with the Raiders. That is a great point. Now, I don't know if he discussed it with Tom Brady, but it feels like he needs to just, okay, Mr. Davis, you need to just hand the reins over to TB12. Just let him work. Let him cook. Just say, hey, you get one season, Tom. We'll see how the progress goes here. You brought in Tom Brady for a reason. Let him hire the coach. Let him go through the process. Let him draft the quarterback. We'll see how it goes. What else do you have to lose? Your team sucks. Your franchise is in the tubes. The next coach that I want fired, and this is obviously a sore spot, a tough one to bring up because Gerard Mayo loved him as a player. He's a great Patriot. But this guy as a coach absolutely sucks. I mean, what? He's terrible. Okay, we had like the best, and I'm saying we, okay? I'm saying we, because I'm a fan of the Patriots, all right? The defense sucks. Tony Pollard, the Titans lined up in overtime and ran the ball like 10 straight times. The Patriots had 10 guys in the box. I think the whole team was in the box. We still couldn't stop the run. You come in here, Gerard Mayo, and you talk your fancy game, and you say, we're going to be a tough football team. We're going to run the ball, and we're going to stop the run, and we're going to cover kicks. You're just taking quotes from Bill Belichick and just throwing them out there. Come on. You can't stop the run. You can't run the ball. I mean, Ramondre Stevenson had 1.9 yards per carry. You extended him before the season because you think he's a good running back, and I think he is a good running back. Okay? But you can't run the ball. You couldn't run the ball last week. You couldn't run the ball a week before. Drake May is leading the team in rushing every single week. Drake May had 300 of your 315 yards. If it weren't for Drake May, this team would be absolutely awful to watch. Awful. Drake May is the whole team. What did you guys do? You don't have an offensive line. You don't have any receivers. You continue to play Jalen Polk despite him being the worst receiver I've seen in the NFL this year. The offensive line can't block anybody. The defense can't get to the quarterback. What do they do? Well, maybe they punt the ball well. I guess that's something to be proud of. They punt the ball well. If it were not for Drake May, that game would have been a blowout against the Tennessee Titans with Mason Rudolph. They would have been blown out if not for your 22-year-old quarterback. Come on, come on, man. Gerard Mayo needs to go before it's too late because you're going to have an opportunity this offseason. You're going to have great tape of Drake May, and you're going to be able to pick from all the young offensive minds in the NFL. Hey, Ben Johnson, what do you think of Drake May? You could run this entire show in New England. You could bring in all these guys. You've got a quarterback already. We don't have anything else. We don't have receivers. We don't have O-line. We don't got a defense anymore. Sure, blame it on injuries. But you have a quarterback that you can work with, you know? So, and what's going to happen, I guarantee it, Robert Kraft is going to run it back with Gerard Mayo because he thinks the team doesn't have enough talent. This team with Bill Belichick, I'm not saying this is the most talented roster in the league. It certainly is not. They would be 4-5 with Bill Belichick. They probably would have beat the Titans. They probably would have beat Seattle. They could stop the run with Bill Belichick. I know that for a fact. So, I mean, the offense, just to finish this off, man, because I could go on for another 30 minutes. The Patriots averaged on third down, guys, 3rd and 10 plus on third down. Do you know how hard that is to do? So that means on first and second down, they could have thrown the ball at the ground and they would have had a better average on first and second down. They averaged closer to 3rd and 11 than 3rd and 10. And Drake May still somehow did something in this game. You just keep running the ball for 1 yard on first down. Let's just keep that going. All right. Klein says, not to mention he talked about benching Mondre for Gibson and still played Mondre. Yeah, he's talking out of both sides of his mouth. He has no idea what he's doing. He has no idea. No idea. Crazy Killer says, Drake, he never even called plays for the defense, and he's the coach. This is Antonio Pierce. Drake May looks good. Pat's got their quarterback of the future, but agree they need a new coach. Yes, I agree. Frank says Drake May needs Mike Vrabel. See, why did we not, Robert Kraft, you're a smart man. Why did you not interview any other coach? Not a single one. That just sounds lazy to me. We had Mike Vrabel sitting right there. He's a Patriot linebacker too. Probably a better one. You couldn't hire him? He's already been to the AFC Championship with Ryan Tannehill. Come on, bro. The Dallas Cowboys, everyone knew this one was coming, need to fire their coach. I honestly think that Bleacher Report wants me to do this topic specifically because they want me to talk about the Cowboys. This is what I think before I get the topic, okay? Right as soon as I get the topic. They're like, they just want me to talk about how the Cowboys should fire their coach. And it's absolutely true. I can't deny it. Dallas, the Cowboys need a change because Mike McCarthy is simply not it. Okay? He has brought 12-win seasons. Oh, great. Yeah, that's amazing. Celebration. Get the fireworks. Get the confetti. 12-win seasons. But Jerry Jones doesn't like 12-win seasons if it doesn't make for playoff success. What I see with the Cowboys is, sure, this is not the most talented Cowboys team we've seen in recent years. Last year's team, talented. The year before that, talented. The year before that, talented. And talent has often carried Mike McCarthy. But you watch the team play on both sides of the ball. Do you ever go into a Cowboys game and you say, wow, they're the more prepared team. They're better coached. Their scheme on offense is light years ahead of the rest of the league. Their defense is so well schemed. Maybe with Dan Quinn a little bit, you said that, right? Zimmer, underwhelming. McCarthy, underwhelming. How many times do we need to see Dak Prescott throw the ball to the flat on 3rd and 10? I mean, like, seriously. How many times do we need to see a receiver catching the ball with 2 players on him? Like, do you ever watch the Packers or the Niners and you're like, how did that guy get wide open? I don't think I've ever said that watching the Dallas Cowboys, except for the Niners game where they literally just ran into each other. Other than that, I don't think I've ever watched the Cowboys offense and I was like, wow, that guy was wide open. Maybe with CeeDee Lamb, he just routed a guy up, just his individual talent. But I've never said that about like Robert Turpin or Jalen Tolbert. You watch some of these other offenses and it's like, well, how did Khalif Raymond get wide open? And I never say that about the Cowboys. So yeah, we could blame Dak. Dak isn't great. He's good. He's not great. He's overpaid. But he's not this bad. The receivers kind of stink outside of CeeDee Lamb without Brandon Cooks there. It's kind of been exposed a little bit. The run game, I don't know who is responsible for the run game, but Rico Dowdle actually looked pretty good against the Falcons. I don't know why it took Mike McCarthy so long to feature him in the offense. I don't know why the run game is so awful. The defense, they can't stop the run. And I think that's the underlying point here. The Cowboys are soft. When you look at Mike McCarthy's Cowboys, what have they consistently done poorly? Run the ball and stop the run. And you look at the rest of the NFC and you look at the NFC contenders over the last couple of years. What do the Niners do? They're one of the best running teams in the league. They're physical. For as much talent as they have at skill positions, they're physical. You look at the Eagles, their Super Bowl run. They run the ball. They tush push you to death. The Detroit Lions, they run the ball. They're physical. They bite kneecaps. The Cowboys are soft. They haven't stopped the run in 4 years. Like, seriously. Flip John says Jerry Jones needs to focus on being an owner, not operating as a GM. He's failed as a deal maker. I do agree that Jerry Jones, for years, has needed to take a step back. But this is just the predicament you're in as a Dallas Cowboy coach. And I think the biggest flaw for Jerry Jones is the coaches he's hired. He has never once hired, outside of maybe Bill Parcells, a great coach that is an intellectual, like, you know what I mean? Like, just a great scheme coach. Like, a great scheme coach or just a big, like, individual CEO type. Like, he kind of always has his lackeys there. I don't know. Jerry Jones doesn't care about wins. He cares about money in the chat. If he cares about money, he cares about wins. I think wins helps you get money. That being said, there were some players that made some money on Sunday. They had a quest for greatness. It is now time for the new segment, Quest for Greatness, presented by MetaQuest. Whatever you're into, whether it's movies, gaming, or fitness, get more into it with MetaQuest. So I have 3 players that had a quest for greatness on Sunday. Simply put, 3 players that balled out, that played really well, that are destined for greatness. Let's begin with the quarterback that has greatness in his eyes, greatness in his arm. The man with all the aura in the world. I'm talking about Joe Burrow of the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow went out there. He said, we got to win this many games out of this many games. And what did he do? He responded with 5 touchdowns. 5. Not 4, not 3, 5 touchdowns. And I want to say 4 of them were to different players. 2 of them were to Mike Gesicki. And he did it a little bit differently. He didn't have his left tackle, Orlando Brown Jr., who's been playing phenomenal this year. He didn't have T. Higgins. And Jamar Chase really didn't have a great game. Joe Burrow, 251 yards, 5 touchdowns, a desperate spot for the Bengals. He showed up. He led the way. Trey Hendrickson responded on defense with 4 sacks. Shout out to him, too. The second player that balled out, that had a quest for greatness, and this was quite literally, and he actually did it hurtling backwards into the quest of greatness. That's Saquon Barkley. Yes, sir. Saquon Barkley continues to shine. Who would have thought? You guys answer this question for me in the chat. A generational running back talent on an actual good team with an offensive line. Do you think that's going to work? Looks like it's worked. Okay. Saquon Barkley against Jacksonville led the NFL in rushing on Sunday with 159 yards, 27 carries. He also had a touchdown on the ground. On top of that, he had 3 catches for 40 yards and another touchdown. That's 2 touchdowns. That's nearly 200 total yards and 1 incredible backwards hurdle. I've never seen a play like that in my life. But people aren't talking about how he did a spinorama before he did the backwards hurdle. That's what was really impressive to me. So Saquon, great. Zay Flowers is our third and final quest for greatness. And I'll throw a little bit of a mention to Lamar Jackson too. But Zay Flowers, because I think this week in particular, he exemplified the victory for Baltimore. 5 catches, 2 touchdowns on 5 catches, 127 yards and 25.4 yards per reception. 25.4. That is explosive. That is efficient. That's exactly what the Ravens offense was. Explosive, efficient, elusive. Zay Flowers in the open field was making 3 or 4 guys miss for a touchdown. Another scramble drill play from Lamar Jackson for another touchdown. And just, he has become such a good player. He was one of my favorite breakout candidates this year. It's nice to see Zay ball out in Baltimore. So that is your 3 players that had a quest for greatness on Sunday. Let's get back to the list, guys. Jacksonville is the next team. Okay. Doug Peterson is a coach that, yeah, I know he has a statue in Philadelphia. You know, when you think about that, how does Doug Peterson have a statue? He won 1 Super Bowl. He has a statue. And then you also have Rocky Balboa has a statue. Like, how do you have those 2 things? Like, I don't know. But anyways, Doug Peterson is the coach of the Jacksonville Jags, not the Philadelphia Eagles. And since becoming the Jags coach, he has been 9-8, 9-8, and now he's 2-7. So he could never really get over the hump. Now, last year, people gave him the excuse that Trevor Lawrence got injured, why they were 9-8 and missed the playoffs. But I remember hearing the owner in Jacksonville say and proclaim, this is the best Jaguar team they have ever had. The expectations have never been higher in Jacksonville entering a season. And what happened? Total, utter disappointment. 2-7 with a quarterback that they paid, with a quarterback that they think is elite, although he's not. It's okay. But you look at Doug Peterson, what was he hired to do? He was hired to establish a winning culture, winning ways with this team. He was hired to fix the offensive line, not done. He was hired to make Trevor Lawrence an elite player, not done. The defense sucks. It's probably the 2nd worst defense in the league. They can't cover a soul. I mean, it's embarrassing. And Doug Peterson, I just don't think he's having any effect. I don't think his offensive scheme is above average at this point in time. I think he's definitely seen better days. And it's really not working. Like, that's simply it. Like, I don't think Doug Peterson is an awful coach. I think he's fairly average. He's better than Gerard Mayo and Antonio Pierce. But when you go into a season expecting playoffs, and you go into a season expecting the best team ever in your franchise, and you go into a season thinking, wow, we've got a talented roster. Like, honestly, I looked at the roster. I was like, it's pretty good. You know, if they went 9-8 last year, they should go 9-8 this year at least. They're nowhere close to that. They're one of the worst teams in the NFL. So, yeah, Doug Peterson has to go, to be honest. Like, is it all his fault? Probably not. But, you know, like, they just need a change. They just need a change. So, yeah, Doug Peterson out of Jacksonville. Doug Peterson would be a good fit for the Raiders. I don't know, man. I think they need a fresh face. We'll see. I mean, he would at least bring like a professional. I guess we could say that. Antonio Pierce is certainly not a professional. When is T-Law in the bus convo? Well, I've never been a big T-Law guy. I'm not gonna be, crazy here, but I feel like he's solid. He's not great. He's not bad. He's solid. He definitely has talent. You know, I think he's got one of the best deep balls in the league right now. I thought like the last couple of games, I thought he's played well, but I don't know. I guess he's a bust compared to expectation. He's not a bust simply because the draft class was awful. If you look at it like Justin Fields, Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance were the other quarterbacks. And who's the second best quarterback on that list in the first round? Justin Fields. That's a pretty low bar. So yeah, like Trevor Lawrence, supposed to be generational, certainly not lived up to that. I don't view him as a quarterback that can uplift players around him, that leads this team. Doesn't have much of a leader personality to me. And as a player, kind of feels slow-minded and at times inaccurate. but has had bright spots. I think that this team and this franchise, though, is tied to Trevor Lawrence, and that's simply the fact of the matter. So they have to make a move at the head coach position. Next, this one might be a little controversial just because they won against the awful Raiders on Sunday. But Zach Taylor, if you really think about it, Zach Taylor needs to go, man. Like, Zach Taylor needs to go. The Cincinnati Bengals are one of the most drama-filled football teams that has won approximately nothing that I've ever seen. And they are one of the softest teams in the NFL. They are one of the worst teams in the NFL at running the ball and stopping the run. And it feels like they just don't practice. You ever get that vibe from the Bengals where it just feels like they roll out of bed and they play on Sunday? It feels like they don't even practice. The offense, which is Zach Taylor's, is really just Joe Burrow reliant. It's really talent reliant. It's extremely okay. We need Burrow to read the field like every play. He's got to go, okay, if he's not here, he's got to go here. Like, the offensive line has been broken for years. Years. Even when they were good, the offensive line was broken. The reason they didn't win a Super Bowl in 2021 is because the offensive line was broken. And to be honest, the better coach on that staff has been the defensive coordinator for a majority of the time. This is just a coach that's underachieving with the team and the quarterback that he has. Joe Burrow is a great player. Jamar Chase is a great player. There's good players on that offense and there's good players on that defense. And they've spent a lot of money on the offensive line. And they still can't fix it. So Zach Taylor, I just think he's kind of soft. Like, he doesn't bring any edge. He doesn't bring any toughness. They play in Ohio. Like, they act like they play in Florida. Like, it's just weird. I don't know what to say. They play like a team that's in a dome or something. They play in Ohio. Wow. Like, am I supposed to be blown away they beat the Raiders? They lost to the Patriots. Are you kidding? This team is never equipped at the beginning of the season. They lose the first couple games every year because they're never ready. Whose fault is that? The coach. They're never ready. And it's like, okay, we'll have Joe Burrow bail us out in November and December, and it's probably going to happen again. Guys, think about it this way. They have one of the best quarterbacks in the league. They have literally the leading receiver in the NFL, and they also have the leading sacker in the NFL. Let me say that again. They have one of the best quarterbacks in the league. They have the leading receiver in the league. They have the leading sacker in the league. They are 4-5. Whose fault is that? It's got to be the coach, right? Like, so Zach Taylor has done some good things in Cincinnati, but you look at his team and you're like, could we not do better? Could we not be better? Right? So, and he's horrible in game management too. Horrible. Terrible. John Wick 101 says Bengals need a new owner. He is cheap. I don't disagree with that. But they have players. Michael says, why hasn't he gotten to the Bears yet? Can use this to go to the Bears. Sorry. Michael says, why hasn't this gotten to the Bears yet? I don't know. We're going to get to the Bears right now. Matt Eberflus. I thought he was trying to say, why has Zach Taylor not gotten to the Bears? I'm like, you really want Zach Taylor, bro? Like, are you serious? I guess Bears fans will take anything. I mean, they think Caleb Williams is a good quarterback. Just saying. Anyways, the Bears could fire their coach, Matt Eberflus. That would be a good idea. All right. And the reason I would say that is I think you finally have an avenue to approach this at, because previously the reason this team was actually half decent and the reason they were actually winning some games was their defense. It wasn't because of the offense, Justin Fields. It's not been because of Caleb. It's not because of the offensive prowess, the great receivers. It's nothing like that. It's been because of the defense. And that's Matt Eberflus's role, right? So, but this past weekend, in the last 2 weeks, we've had some problems. First of all, a Hail Mary where one of your cornerbacks is taunting the crowd with a 2-man rush, and Jaden Daniels has 20 seconds to throw the ball where nobody is behind the receiver in the end zone. What type of Hail Mary defense is that? That you're supposed to be a defensive coach that's good in game situations, and that's not it. And then against the Cardinals, you just said, hey, you were a red carpet in Arizona. James Conner, here you go. We're just going to let you run the ball the entire game. And then right before the half, we're going to let DeMarcado just basically get outside the tackle and run for a free touchdown. There you go. There's a touchdown. The Bears, I know they had injuries on defense. That was an embarrassing defensive performance for them, considering their standard and their talent and their ability. And they got ran all over. They got beat up. And it felt like their team and his team, Matt Eberflus's team, did not respond to the loss against Washington. That is a big moment for Chicago. You've got to come out the next week and play on fire, execute, physical. You did not do anything that you set out to do. Offensive line struggles again. Quarterback struggles again. Defense struggled. And you look at this entire operation and you say, okay, if this thing's going to work in Chicago, what needs to work? Caleb needs to be good. And so far, he's had some good moments, but it's mostly been pretty lackluster. And I think for Chicago to proceed, they need to get the most out of Caleb. It's not going to be through a defensive coach. It's just not going to be that way, especially with Shane Waldron as your offensive coordinator, who's awful. He's awful. No wonder, as you look at Seattle, you look at Chicago, like they can't block anybody. Okay. And what do they do on offense? And the guy has DJ Moore. Does he even know DJ Moore's on his team? Like, seriously. Does he even know? At least Luke Getsy, who got fired, knew who DJ Moore was. Like, seriously. So the offense is a mess. Caleb looks awful. They need to fix that. The offensive line can't block. The defense doesn't want to tackle anymore. Doesn't want to stop the run anymore. And listen to this. The Bears have gone 0-18 on the road in a Sunday game with Matt Eberflus as a head coach. I didn't know this stat before Sunday. The Bears are 0-18 on the road on Sundays in Matt Eberflus's coaching career. I think they won a Thursday night game against Washington, a Monday night game against the Patriots. That's about it from what I recall off the top of my head. They are 0-18 on Sundays on the road. They are not prepared to play on the road. Terrible football team. Trader Joe says, I'm still not sold on Caleb, but Eberflus has to go. I agree. Yes, I am not sold on Caleb either. I 100% agree. I think right now you could probably say at best he's like the third best quarterback in the draft class. At best. I would say like Eberflus, though, if you're going to turn this around, you need an offensive inspired coach because Shane Waldron is awful. All right. And our last final team actually plays tonight. It's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Todd Bowles is their coach. And I understand this one is probably going to be a little controversial because Todd Bowles did take the Bucs to a 9-8 season, and they made the playoffs last year, and they beat an absolutely horrific Philadelphia Eagle team. Like that Eagle team last year, I know they made the playoffs. They were not a playoff team. They were like one of the worst teams in the NFL. So they beat the Eagles, and then they kind of played well against the Lions. And so far, they've played well this year. And I like Todd Bowles. He seems like a great guy. And, he did some great things during that Tom Brady era. That Super Bowl run was fantastic. But he even disappointed in Tom Brady's final season. Like, they were not a well-coached team that year at all. Not offensively, not defensively. They were a very poorly coached team, and they never had structure. Todd Bowles has never been a good head coach to me. He's never been a good head coach with the Jets. He's never been a good head coach with the Bucs. He's always been a defensive coordinator, a glorified defensive coordinator. And this year and even last year, you look at his defense and you're like, this is one of the worst defenses in the NFL. They do nothing well. And that's why I would say you have to move on from Todd Bowles. And if I were the Bucks, I would replace him with Liam Cohen. I would replace him with their offensive coordinator. You look at the difference between both sides of the football in Tampa Bay. The reason they're 4-4 is their offense. The reason they're 4-4 is Baker Mayfield. The reason they're 4-4 is because they score more than their opponent, not because of their defense. They're 27th in points allowed this year. They're 30th in yards allowed this year. Todd Bowles' calling card, they're 31st in run yards per attempt allowed. They're 31st in the league at stopping the run. That's what Todd Bowles is known for. Todd Bowles is known for creating pressure and creating havoc. They don't get sacks. They don't create pressure. Their defense is atrocious. And we're going to see that on Monday Night Football. They have talent. I know that they've had some injuries, but they definitely have some talented guys still in that defense, and it's not working. And the offense is carrying this team. Liam Cohen has been one of the best offensive play callers in the league this year. They have 3 running backs that can play. The offensive line has been improved. The run game has been improved. Godwin and Evans are still out, and Baker's throwing for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, and you can't win. When you don't have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, you have to be able to be flexible in how you win games. And it feels like the Bucs can only win one type of game this year. They can only win a shootout because their defensive coach is not having his side of the ball prepared. So he disappointed with Tom Brady. He had a fluky 9-8 season against a terrible playoff team and won the game. And then this year, they're probably going to finish with an 8-9, 9-8 record, 7-10 record. And it's because the defense. It's because Todd Bowles' side of the ball is not performing. So, unfortunately, I like Todd Bowles again. Seems like a great guy. Don't think he should be the coach for the Bucs anymore. I just don't. Dark Thrill says the Giants, pull the plug now. Fire everybody but the GM. I think that coaching is actually one of the least worries about this team. I think GM is a problem. I think quarterback is a huge problem. Daniel Jones stinks. He's horrible. Imagine if this team had Drake May. You watch the offense and how it's coordinated and schemed. It's actually pretty good. You watch the Steelers game. That's one of the best defenses in the league. They still move the ball. They ran the ball. They threw the ball. I would love to have Brian Daboll as my offensive coordinator if I was another team. I think Brian Daboll is a solid coach. I'm not saying he's great, but it's what does this team, the secondary is awful. They just don't have a lot of talent at quarterback. They don't have a lot of talent. Their defense is really underwhelming too, in terms of stopping the other team. They get sacks, but other than that, the defense kind of underwhelming. So, Daboll is one of those where I'd like to see him with a different quarterback. I think that's what I'm trying to say. I'd like to see him with a different quarterback. That's period, end of story. Until then, I'll give him one more chance to see if he can be better with a different quarterback. That's pretty much the end of discussion. The Niners, Kyle is just an OC, can't motivate his players. Kyle is one of the best coaches in the league. I know that Niners fans, for some reason, hate him, despite him probably being the biggest reason they're successful. So you're going to fire the coach that has been to 2 Super Bowls with 2 different quarterbacks, 4 NFC championships in the last 5 years, has a really good playoff record, and has only lost to Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. That doesn't sound like a good idea to me. I don't know. He just constantly makes players better on offense. He actually is part GM on the team and responsible for building one of the better rosters in the NFL. Niners fans are just, some of you guys just, you need to take a little bit of a chill pill, okay? You need to take a bit of a chill pill. Bizarre says Miami's organization needs to go before Tampa Bay's. Miami is 2-6. I can say this about Miami, okay? Tua was hurt. I can say that about Miami. Baker Mayfield, and I'll say this also about Miami. Tua is hurt. Tua is also seen as a good quarterback in part because of Mike McDaniel. Previous to Mike McDaniel, I should say, Tua was not seen as an above average quarterback. Secondly, Baker Mayfield is the reason the Bucs are any good. It's the truth. Like, I don't know. And Mike McDaniel, though, the tricky thing about him is it's hard to find, I think, an offensive guy that is as good as him. That's the tricky part. I think I would give him one more year. Because, yeah, it hasn't been great this year. Absolutely not. He's been definitely in terms of his overall, I think where he struggles is his overall three-phase picture. And I think this is something that Kyle does better, as people say he's offensive coordinator. I think Kyle has a better grasp of all three phases and how a team comes together, cohesiveness. Mike McDaniel is more just simply a play caller. And I think that's where he struggles. I think actually firing Vic Fangio was a huge mistake. For some reason, the players didn't like him. But what he's doing in Philly is pretty good. He's a great defensive coach. With the Dolphins, it feels like their defense has been kind of like up and down. The O-line, I think the GM, if anybody, Chris Greer, I believe, needs to go. Like, that's kind of a take for me. Robert Saleh shouldn't be unemployed. Can we explain why Robert Saleh is a great coach? Like, seriously, what has he done? Can we explain? Now, I do agree that the Jets shouldn't have fired him because what they left there is the worst coaching staff in the NFL. But what has he done? What does he do? He's like, he runs up steps. Congratulations. He runs up steps. He has a job because of Kyle Shanahan, Niners fans. There you go. All right. That's it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed these rants and discussion of the coaches. Appreciate it. You can follow me here on BR. You can also subscribe on YouTube, The Bottom Line View, where I cover all 32 NFL teams and NFL coaches. That was your Monday morning reaction, presented by MetaQuest. Thanks for watching. I'm Mitch. Peace, guys.